Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes so that folks can join. In the meantime, if you don't mind, just say hello in the chat and give a little shout out. Whatever is your hometown, I'd love to see where people are joining us from. I am in Virginia. Weather here is starting to look a little bit like fall. I'm kind of excited for that. Hello, Gail from Texas. We've got Travis from North Carolina, Ashley also from Florida, Chris from Indiana. Okay, we've got people from all over the place. This is exciting. Okay, so today, hey, Shirley, nice to see you. Some familiar faces. Hi, Lisa. Thanks everyone for joining us. So today we're going to be talking about intentional client design, aligning services with joy and growth. That can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For me, I'm going to walk you through my journey of going from a firm that would chew me up and spit me out every day to a firm that I actually love being a part of. It was not a quick process, and it had everything to do, or almost everything to do, with clients. So we're going to be walking a little journey together. Hi, Nancy from Chicago, Rosie from West Palm Beach, Florida. Hello, hello. Okay, so before we get started, just a question I'm going to throw out here, and you can put your answers in the chat. Who here currently only has clients they love? Your entire client roster is all people that you love. You get excited when you see their name pop up in a chat. And then the flip side to that is not exactly. Who currently has some clients that are not fun? I have a feeling that's probably going to get a lot more me's. Yeah. Most of them not fun. Now, hopefully nobody who's on here has only clients they hate. That would be terrible. And if that's you, we need to connect offline and really fix your life stat. Okay, yeah. So I think we can pretty much all agree, right? We have some clients we love, some clients we don't. If you're like I just had too many clients. It's not like they were all bad. It's not like they were all good. There were just too many of them and not enough of the right fit. So we're going to walk a little journey. Nancy, I tend to part ways with unpleasant and untimely clients because my peace means a lot to me. Yes, 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 yes. It took me a little while to learn that lesson. And by a little while, I mean like 10 years. I'm a little bit of a slow learner. When I started out, I grew so fast. If you had a pulse and a wallet, we were going to work together. I'm sure some of you have been in my same shoes. That can get out of hand really quickly. You can end up feeling like you're on a hamster wheel. And again, feeling like your business is running you instead of you running it every day was rough. So yeah, we're going to dive in. I might be showing my age here. Picture it, Sicily, 1922. I'm going to paint a picture for you. If you know, you know. So imagine a life where you have too many clients, too many of the wrong clients. You have pricing issues. If you're like me, I was way undercharging for the services that I was providing. I was working too many hours. I personally, as a business owner, was getting paid little to nothing. I mean, I would go months without being able to take a paycheck. I was struggling to make payroll. I got to a point where I was dreading every single email, every phone call. The minute I walked into the office, staff needed me, everybody needed me. It was just running from fire to fire, making no forward progress in my business. I mean, I was barely hanging on. Being stuck at your desk all day. How many of you, if you're in the tax world, don't take breaks during tax season? How many of you are at your desk for 10 to 12 hours? How many of you are stuck in that grind and you're eating lunch at your desk and maybe even breakfast and dinner? High stress, staff health issues. We got to a point where my key person was having some pretty serious health issues due to the stress. So like, even now, just talking through the slide, as I was preparing the slide, remembering those feelings and remembering the stress and just remembering, I mean, I can feel my heart rate rising. I can feel my face getting red. I'm sweating. I'm going to have to come out of my sweatshirt here in a minute. Just like a visceral reaction, remembering how things were. And for me, this was not all that long ago. This was probably 5 years ago, maybe even 4. So not super long. I definitely was super stressed. I hit burnout. Kashan posted that sometimes more than 17 hours at the desk. Travis commented, "This is like every single day." Yeah, right. And it can happen without you even realizing it almost, right? Like you get in your grind and you're just going and going and going, and you don't take a minute to pause and take stock of where you are and what got you here. So yeah, a little bit about me. I've been an accountant for a long time. I was late to the CPA game. I didn't get my CPA license until I was 40, but I have over 20 years of accounting experience. I'm the owner of Steadfast Bookkeeping. We have 9 staff across 5 states. I own I owned an accounting firm, and then May of 2023 I acquired another firm, and then in February of 2024 I merged in a third firm. So in the span of about a year, we smushed 3 firms together. It was quite a ride. I've had the pleasure of leading sessions at several conferences talking about changing your pricing model. That was the thing that took me from not even being able to pay myself to having enough money to acquire another firm in about 2.5 years. Firm acquisition, providing niche specific services. I also lead a weekly training session that touches on the intersection of accounting and tax for a tax school education platform. And then I also have a mentorship for newbie bookkeepers that focuses on teaching technical accounting skills. So I don't teach bookkeepers how to grow their businesses. I teach them how to be bookkeepers, how to do good accounting. So it's pretty exciting. I see some people in the chat. Uh, Again, obviously a bunch of people had the same kind of reaction to my first slide as I did. Just it's gross. Somebody asked if I want a fourth firm. Hey, you never know. Okay, so quick poll. When you are onboarding clients, and this is whether you offer accounting services or tax services or both or advisory or CFO or whatever, do you screen potential clients for specific characteristics? Because like I said, back when I was getting started, the characteristics I looked for were you were alive and you had a wallet, even if it wasn't very fat, right? If you had a pulse and a wallet, we were going to work together. I did not pre screen. I didn't worry about filtering out people. I didn't focus on attitude, tech savviness, or any of the things that we look for in clients now. Um, Nancy must answer 8 questions before I even speak with them. I love that so much. Okay. Hopefully, if you are not screening potential clients, you start. And this can be especially tricky if you are a tax focused firm, right? You're not always um, meeting with people before they show up to get tax returns prepared. So it may require kind of changing your processes a bit. Ashley has a discovery call and she looks for responsiveness. Absolutely. You meet most of your people through networking. That's super helpful. So I'm going to keep my eye on the chat as we go through. Feel free to pop questions and I'll try to catch them along the way. And if not, we'll circle back to them at the end. Okay. So in my firm, the root of the problem, the root of the problem, I mean, it was nothing but problems, honestly. My firm was a whole entire dumpster fire. I basically burned it to the ground and started over. So pricing and processes were very much issues. I mean, I shared with you, I was way underpricing. I finally got to my F it moment and I literally overnight doubled my minimum fees. And then the next year, 1.5x them again. That resulted in going from having no money and negative cash flow to having enough cash flow to come up with the down payment to acquire a business. So processes and pricing were obviously big problems, but the real root of the problem was the clients. I had no filtering process. We worked with anyone who wanted tax prep or bookkeeping. I didn't have a clear picture of who I wanted to work with. I did not have time to think about who was my ideal client. I didn't have time to think about the characteristics that the clients I enjoyed working with had in common. I was barely getting by. I mean, barely treading water. In the early years of my business, I had multiple offices. I would start my day at 6 a.m. and I wouldn't end it until after midnight. I was the one processing all of the tax returns at all of the offices. So that meant after they closed, I drove office to office to review all the returns, transmit them. I mean, it was a whole entire mess. When I'm telling you, if there's something that you could screw up as a firm owner, I screwed it up. I ain't kidding y'all. If it could have been done wrong, I did it. I didn't spend any time thinking about even who made me happy. So even if I had time to think about the characteristics that clients I liked had in common, I didn't even have time to think about which clients I liked. It was just, again, barely getting by. We accepted bookkeeping clients who used various softwares, who used apps we were not familiar with. Some of those might have been decent fees, but once you factor in the learning curve and the fact that we couldn't come up with any set processes because we were constantly accepting things that were really out of scope for us, it turns out that we probably weren't making money at all. Not all good money is good money. Kaylee points out that ideal clients are responsive, polite, pay bills on time, and appreciate what we do for them. I can't heart that enough. We had our in-person team retreat. I bring my virtual team together once a year in person for 3 days. We were in Orlando last week, and we spent a session and a half talking about our ideal clients to make sure that we are still on track, that we're still focusing on the right people. This is not a one and done discussion. This is a discussion we have at least once a year so that if we need to pivot and refocus, we can. Some of you seem to have your thumb really on the pulse of who you like working with, and that makes me so happy. I wanted to be just like you. And I'm pretty much getting there. We're still not perfect. I'm not at a point where I can say we only have clients we love, but we are much closer. And my happiness, the staff's happiness, and our clients' happiness shows. Okay, so I finally figured out, like, I took a minute to figure out what the root of the problem was. I realized it was the clients. Even then, we just kind of hit a breaking point. I told you I got to a point where I reached that pivotal moment where I knew one of two things was going to happen. Either I was going to lock that door and never come back, head for the hills, or I was going to make some serious changes and try to make this business a legit business that could actually work for me. My right-hand person, Sharon, who had been with me from day one, she was my first hire. She just finally retired last year. We finally got to the point where she felt comfortable retiring because she knew the whole place wasn't going to, go up in smoke. She was having health issues. My mom was a stroke survivor, so I am very intimately familiar with the signs of stroke. I'm 99% sure that Sharon had a mini stroke. She was sitting at her desk one day, started slurring her words, some aphasia, was having trouble coming up with words. That was kind of an aha moment for me. And that day at her desk, even though she started slurring, she didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay and help me work through the pile of returns that were sitting there. That's crazy. I mean, I love her for loving me like that, but that's crazy. We had a few clients back then. We prepared tax returns and then we collected payment after the return was prepared, but before we delivered them. That last tax year before I had my meltdown, we had a few clients who, upon learning the results of their tax returns, decided not to file with us. So they took their documents and went somewhere else. This was back when we had some in person, but even virtual, this could happen. So they didn't like what we had to tell them, didn't like that they owed, or didn't like whatever it was. And they took their documents and went somewhere else. So we didn't get paid for that work. We had clients who were upset that we couldn't give them a clear answer about when their tax returns would be done. It was just crazy days. Bookkeeping clients were upset that we were falling behind on that work because I was busy doing tax work and putting out fires. Probably most important, even beyond all that, I was stressed. My staff was stressed. Nobody was enjoying their jobs. I mean, we all work because we have to, right? It's called work for a reason. If anyone on here is independently wealthy and still choosing to do this, again, let's meet up offline because I want to learn your ways. I'm here because I've got bills to pay. I have to work. And so the fact that I hated going to work every day was a terrible feeling. And then knowing that I had created a business with people working for me who hated going to work every day. Like, what a terrible feeling, even beyond my own. Jeremy posted, hire clients slowly and fire them quickly. Amen. I just made that comment to somebody, I think yesterday. Okay. So, I knew at that point we could not have another year like that. I was going to lock the door and walk away, hop in my car and drive to the mountains, and no one was ever going to hear from me again. Or I had to make some changes. Kevin likes working. I like that. So you must either work for yourself and you have built a good place to work, or you work for a firm that values your mental health and your peace. That was what I wanted. I wanted to achieve my core value of providing a place where people can come to work and build their work around their lives instead of their lives around their work. How many people have you talked to who are in the tax industry who talk about having to plan when they get pregnant around when tax season is, or, can't take a vacation because the workload doesn't allow it. Like, that's crazy. So, my personal core value is to have a firm where people can build their work around their lives. You live your life and then work fills in the gaps. Still at a reasonable pace, still with great benefits. That's what I'm striving for. That was not what I had. What I had was something that was beating us all to a bloody little pulp. So, in other words, completely opposite of what I set out to do. So, I realized, in addition to processes and pricing, I really had to take time to think about who we wanted to work with. And who we wanted to work with affected what we wanted to offer, right? What we wanted to do for people and who we wanted to do it for. But it really came down to who we wanted to work with. I had to take time to think about who I liked working with and why. I had to give my staff space to think about who they liked working with and why did they like working with them. We spent time designing our ideal, we call it ideal client avatar. You can call it whatever you want, ideal client profile. We knew that clearly defining who we liked working with was going to be critical if we were going to update our services correctly and update our pricing correctly. It looks like, okay, there we go. Stop sharing for a second. So think about the last time that you got an email, a text message, a phone call, a portal chat, or whatever you use to communicate with your clients from a client that you do not like working with. Like, I can tell you, we still have a few of those. And when those messages come in, I either roll my eyes or I walk away and come to it later. Think about the last time you received a communication from your favorite client where you're like excited to respond. You're curious about what's going on in their life. You wonder if their kids started the school that they were going to be starting, or if the college drop off went well. If you've dropped kids off at college, you know that can go one of two ways. When I dropped mine off, I cried like a baby. Cried the whole drive home from Pennsylvania to Virginia, both times. That's just how I roll. So hold on to that feeling, the thing you felt when you got a message from someone you don't like working with, and then compare that with the feeling when you get a message from somebody you do like working with. It's a much different feeling when it's somebody that you like. So imagine having a firm full of clients that make you feel like your favorite client does. I put that in there as much for myself. I honestly can't even imagine having everybody that I like working with, but I can tell you it is light years better to have mostly clients that we like working with. So hold on to those feelings. So we identified our ideal client. That was step one. I'm going to say that again and again. You're probably thinking I'm just like regurgitating the same slide, but I can't stress enough how important it is to take some time to think about it, because and to involve your team, right? Who I like working with may not be who my staff likes working with. And at my firm, I've worked really hard for the last year and a half in removing myself from the day-to-day client-facing work. Almost no client work is done by me anymore. I'm strictly like CEO, strategy, vision, mission. So it's not even as important who I like working with anymore. It's really more important who my staff likes working with. So think about the characteristics of your favorite clients. What industry are they in? What services are they getting from you? Do they follow your recommendations? Do they use your tech stack without complaining? Can the staff do the work, or does it fall to you to deliver? That one might not be as important if you're a solo, obviously, but if you have a team, that one might be really important. Think about whatever points are important to you, however you define who is a good client. Make note of all of those traits, and then you're going to rank your current clients based on those chosen characteristics. We try to have things that are easier to assign numeric values to, that are less feelings based. Some of them are obviously going to be feeling, I like them or I don't like them. But for us, what industry are you in? We've kind of narrowed our focus down to a few industries. So for our existing clients, they're either in one of those industries or they're not. We can assign a numeric value to that, a 1 or a 5. You are or you aren't. We look at packages. We have bookkeeping packages, tax packages, and a mix of the two. Our preferred client is going to have both bookkeeping and tax. So if they're in that, they get a 5. If they're in bookkeeping only, they get a 4. If they're in a tax package, they get a 3. If they're once per year tax prep, they get a 2, right? So we can assign numeric values. And then we have a few categories that are more feelings based. So we took the time as a firm to rank all of our existing clients using those chosen characteristics. In the first round, we didn't have a huge number of characteristics to rank because This was a new process for us and it ain't easy. And it's time consuming. And remember, we still had work to do. So we got through that process. I got input from everybody. And then we were able to sort our client list with highest rankings to lowest rankings. So this is an example of some of the ranking that we did. This obviously has been anonymized. These are not actual client names. But the first round, we were looking only at industry, package, and then good client. Good client is a yes or a no. Although, as you can see, we had a nonprofit client who got a 3, and we had another client who got a 3. So again, it's feelings based. You can assign 1 through 5 based on how you feel about somebody. So then we took these 3 categories and we came up with an average. And then we assigned A, B, C, D, F, just like back when you were in school, to the averages. And the goal was to immediately eliminate all the F clients. Hopefully, there weren't many of those. And if you go through this process, hopefully, there aren't many of those. If I can afford to get rid of the D clients, we would get rid of the D clients as well. And then eventually the C, leaving only A's and B's. That's the goal. Now, obviously, that's pie in the sky. If everything works perfectly, that's how it's going to be. Yeah. I'm looking at a comment from Nancy back to goals and involving your team. She emailed bookkeepers and offered to meet with them to discuss their 2026 goals. They all have their own businesses and some subcontract to me. That's a good point, right? So this might look different for you if you sub out your work versus having actual in-house staff. But either way, you still might benefit from doing a process like this. And if you want to keep those subcontractors working for you, you're probably going to want to have clients they actually enjoy working with. So there's a bunch of different ways to build businesses in this industry, which is one of the things that I love. You can do pretty much however you want to do it. So this was the ranking process we went through. Over to the right is how we ranked packages. In our firm, after we figured out who we wanted to work with, we started honing in on what services we offer. We realized that it does not bring us joy to have once per year tax prep only clients. We would need too many of those. We would need a ton of them to be able to make money, to pay people the way I want to pay people. In my firm, to me, full time is 36 hours max. We don't work nights or weekends, even during tax season. My people are salary. We have unlimited PTO, and we actually take it. Our lowest PTO usage so far this year is just over 100 hours. So I actually go through and monitor PTO throughout the year so that if I see people aren't taking it, I can ping them to take some time off. That's an important metric to me. We have health insurance, all the things. So we have to obviously have a level of service that allows me to afford all that stuff. So we give lowest priority to people who are once per year tax prep only. We have a few legacy clients who are still that, but we don't accept those clients anymore. Then we give a 2 to people who are in a tax only package. So now we offer monthly tax packages. So if you are a tax only client and you're in one of those packages, you got a 2. If you were in a tax package plus we did a quarterly review of your accounting records, then you got a 3. Bookkeeping only was a 4, and bookkeeping plus tax was a 5. That's our like pie in the sky. If we could have a whole firm, we want the stickiest relationship possible. And so bookkeeping and tax does that for us. Industry rankings 1 and 5, they were either in our niche or not in our niche. We didn't exactly follow through that. As you can see in my sheet, we have a publishing company that's really not in a niche that we defined, but they don't have inventory, they don't have manufacturing. So we slapped a 3 on that baby. Lisa said a few years ago, each staff member rated their clients, and her view of clients was very different than the staff view. Some that she thought were A or B, the client or the staff thought were D or F. So it is a great idea to involve your staff in the ranking. Again, if you're solo, not as important, still valuable to do it, but obviously your opinion is the only one that matters. But if you have staff and if you are either in the process or already have handed off most of the client facing work, definitely going to want to involve them. That is probably, that's a thing I was a little bit slower to learn too. Now that I want to focus on running my company and not being the accountant in my company, it really no longer matters who I like working with. It's kind of, that was like another little aha moment for me. Okay. So you've gone through all this, you've taken the time to do this ranking. Now what, right? These clients aren't going to offload themselves. They're not going to offboard voluntarily most of the time. So you've taken the time to do this ranking. You've had the meetings with your staff. You know who you want to focus on going forward. What do you do now? What do you do with the clients you currently have that do not match the avatar you created? And then how do you find clients that do fit your ideal client profile? I mean, those are the questions, right? Those are the questions we're all trying to solve. How do we find good clients? And I don't have a super solid answer for you. I don't have that nut all the way cracked yet. But um, the thing that we did once we had, especially the F clients, don't overcomplicate it. All the time on social media, I see people ask for examples of termination letters. Um, it really doesn't have to be that complicated. We would just send a message to that client and say something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing here, but short and sweet. You don't have to justify it. No is a complete answer. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. So the email we would send would say something like, we're changing direction here at Steadfast Bookkeeping. And unfortunately, we don't believe we're the best fit to help you anymore. And then tell them how long you're going to work, give them whatever 30, 60, 90 days notice. If you have other firms that you can refer them to, you can include that you'd be happy to provide them with some referrals to new providers if they're interested. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't have to go into a big, long explanation. You don't have to explain your ranking process. You don't owe any answers or any details to anyone except your staff. You all have come to this decision. So those F clients get a message that say, we're so sorry, but we are not the best fit for you anymore. And then you release them into the wild. I don't look at releasing clients as a bad thing. Odds are, not always, but if you are unhappy working with them, there's a decent chance that they might be unhappy as well, and they just don't have the initiative to fix it. So, whenever we're releasing a client who's just not a great fit for us and who we know we're not delivering the best service that we could possibly deliver, we consider it freeing them to go find a better fit, right? Freeing them to find someone who's going to make them happy, and we can find someone who's going to make us happy. Kaylee pointed out that the office secretary had good input regarding clients' temperament since she's the one who talks to them on the phone. People who were rude to her are no longer a client. That is a great point. If you do have somebody who's either answering the phones or working a front desk for a brick and mortar, that first line of defense is a great person to get input from. I have a standing rule that if people are mean to my staff, they are immediately fired. I don't care how good they are. The only thing that would save them is if my team member comes to me and says, I'm pretty sure that was a one-time thing. I'm okay. I'm not upset. But then they get a stern talking to from me that says, next time you better come correct or you're going to be invited to leave. We just don't tolerate it. It always amuses me because I see all of the interactions. Like we use TaxDome, we're fully integrated in TaxDome, and that is our client communication platform. So I can see all the messages going back and forth between all of my team and all of our clients. And it never ceases to amaze me the attitude that some clients will give to my team, but then when they get on a meeting or a chat with me, they're nice as can be. I'm here to tell you, you're much more likely to stay a client if you're mean to me than if you're mean to my staff. I'll put up with a lot because it's my company and my money, but I'm not going to subject my staff to that. In fact, we just fired a client yesterday because one of their points of contact keeps catching an attitude with my team, and I'm just not going to ask them to tolerate that. Jeremy points out they have 3 non-negotiables: civility, communication, and cash flow. If you're rude, very difficult to connect with, and or have payment problems, your time as our client is short. That is a great point. At my team retreat last week, we identified what criteria we're going to do this ranking process on again, and one of them is cash flow, profitability. They have to, we didn't use that as a metric before. We didn't use revenue or any financial metrics as a qualifier to work with us. But because we're expanding the services that we offer, we're having to move a little bit up market. It's really important that they can afford to pay the higher fees that we're now charging. So yeah, profitability is going to be one of the things that we start ranking on as well. Y'all are putting some good stuff in the chat. Keep it coming. Okay, so I'm curious, for those of you who have defined who your ideal client is, how are you finding them? And this answer is different for local offices versus fully virtual. this is the thing that has been a challenge to me since I went fully virtual. We were virtual pre-COVID, but we still had an in-person office for the local people who wanted to work there. We have local clients we've never met, even though we had an office. But now that we are fully virtual, I do not have a local presence anymore. Marketing strategies for me are very different. I'm not just walking into a local networking meeting most of the time to find people. So for me, one of the ideal clients we've settled on, one of the niches we've settled on is home services, um, contractors. And so I joined a local building industry association and I've been to a few events that's already starting to work out really well. So I'm curious, for those of you who have pretty clearly defined who your ideal clients are, where are you finding them? Have you changed your marketing at all to attract those people, or are you just letting your pipeline fills up and then you're filtering based on your chosen characteristics? I'm going to keep an eye on the chat for some answers on that. Okay, so what does steadfast look like now? Remember, we went from, gosh, I'm like sweating just thinking about it, y'all. We went from being absolutely miserable every single day. I cannot think of a time in those years where like I had a good day at work. I really enjoyed my staff and I loved seeing them when we were in the office together, and that's all fine and good, but there was never a day where I was like excited to go to work. It was awful. So what does steadfast look like now? We don't work overtime even during tax season. This year, we implemented a calendar process for our tax season. So our entire year, all of our tax work is scheduled out. We file extensions for 100% of our clients, and probably less than 20% of our returns are filed before April 15th. So everything is very spread out. This year, our only full-time tax preparer, he's an EA, his wife was due to have a baby March 15th. So he was able to take a month of paternity leave March 15th to about April 15th or to early April. That would never have been possible even 3 years ago. So no overtime, even during tax season, no nights or weekends, unless that's when staff likes to work. We don't track time. I don't dictate what hours you work. You work the hours you want to work based on your workload. We have unlimited PTO. We encourage staff to use it. When I prepared this slide, our lowest PTO usage was 98 hours, but that person has since taken 2 more days. Most importantly, we've been slowly releasing clients who are not ideal. And again, our definition of ideal has changed a couple of times. One of the most important metrics is, are they good to work with or not? We can overcome some of the other challenges, but if they're just not pleasant to work with, they for sure got to go. And then we've been focusing on onboarding only clients who fit our ideal profile. Right now in my firm, I'm still handling discovery calls and onboarding. So if anyone gets through that process and they're not a good fit, it's 100% my fault. I tend to get excited when I talk to small business owners and I forget all the things I said I was going to focus on because I'm just so excited to help them that I forget sometimes they're not a good fit for us to help. Popping back into the chat, someone asked how we handle unlimited PTO. I think I saw that somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. We can circle back to that. There's a bunch of great advice on networking and how they're finding their clients. I want to touch on that real quick. Local chambers of commerce, word of mouth referrals from individuals that you trust, and diving deep into community organizations and networking. Referrals from your existing clients who are an ideal fit are great. So one of the things I'm focused on getting better at is asking for referrals. I hate it. I'm not good at it. It feels salesy to me, but the reality is if I have clients who I love, they probably have business owning friends who are similar to them. Why wouldn't I want them to come into my firm? So I'm trying to get better at asking for referrals from existing clients. Professional networking, networking with local realtors, bankers, lawyers, and insurance brokers. I love that, Shirley. I call it helping our clients set their bail team, banker, accountant, insurance, and lawyer, setting bail, right? Like helping keep your business client out of jail. You help them set bail. It's kind of fun, little play on words there. Denise, about 75% referrals and 25% Google search. Yeah, that's great. Work on your SEO. Make sure you have your Google business page is current and updated. I had somebody recently tell me that they went to search for me and they couldn't find me. And it's because when I bought the first company, I rebranded and I forgot to update my Google business page. It still has my legal company name, not our doing business as name, a year and a half, 2 years later. Who knew? So those kinds of things are important. Facebook webinars. That's how she found a state attorney. I love that. Yeah, all great suggestions. So yeah, we've been focusing on that. I've been focusing on spending my time trying to be in places where my ideal client is hanging out, whether that's virtual or in person. Again, joining the local building association has been good for me. Not only is it getting me out of the house and in front of people again, but those are the people we want to work with. So yeah, and then focusing on filtering the discovery process so that they're at least somewhat pre-qualified before they're meeting with me. And then the discovery is happening where I'm filtering it out even more. All right. I'm curious. This was a lot of like theory and some practical information. If you are one of those people who does not have a firm full of only clients you love, what is one thing that you're going to do when you leave here? One thing that you're going to do to try to start filtering out those people that you don't love working with. We at my in-person team retreat last week, like I said, we had some more discussions about ideal clients. We settled on the characteristics that we want to focus on for this next year. One of them is, and this was not in our first set of rankings, was tech savviness. So I shared with you that we use TaxDome. We are trying to get our clients out of email. We want everyone communicating with us in TaxDome. That means the whole team can see all the messages, everything is in one place. And so we're looking for people who understand how to use a cell phone, who understand how to use two-factor authentication because we require it. TaxDome allows us to turn on two-factor authentication for everybody. So we're looking for tech savviness. That wasn't something we screened for before. We're looking at cash flow. That's also not something we screened for before. And earlier I said profitability, and at the retreat last week, we said profitability, but it just really occurred to me that profit doesn't equal cash flow. So I'm going to pivot that a little bit and make it a cash flow metric, not a profitability metric. And then some more of the same. Are they in our industry? What service packages do they have? And do we like working with them or not? Coming back to the chat, let's see. Year-end reviews, those are great. I've got some questions here. Give me 1 second. Advice on how to shift your firm to only serving ideal clients once you have identified what you want in a client. Yeah, that is the problem, right? If you're like me, you can't afford to just out of the gate fire everyone who doesn't meet the ABC on your ranking. So the first thing that we did was look at the F clients. If they got an F, that means they absolutely have to go no matter what. We have to figure this out. And we release those clients. Then I looked at the D clients to see if I could afford to release them. Some were able to go right away. Some it took a couple of months. As far as targeting ideal clients, again, that comes back to the marketing. For me, it really comes back to marketing. And I think this answer is going to be different for everybody, but I'll tell you what the key is for me. Because marketing is like my kryptonite, I'm not super great at it, right? I'm an accountant. I'm not good at coming up with the fluffy materials. I'm not great at figuring out Facebook ads. I've never used them because I'm not good enough at narrowing down the field. But I did play around in Facebook ads. And when you set them up, it asks you who you want to target and you're trying to get a narrow audience. That was a useful exercise for me when I started thinking about who my ideal client was. Because when you do that, you have to get super specific. I mean, we're talking about down to age groups, industries, income levels, everything you could think of, there's a filter for it. And so that can really help you get to thinking who you want to work with. For us, the primary niche we want to focus on going forward are trades and contractors. So for us moving forward to fill up my firm with clients like that, I want to be in front of those people. So again, I joined the local building association. There's the National Association has a conference in February. My business partner and I are going to that. We're not getting a booth, We're just going to walk around. I'm going to make a t-shirt. I'm a lover of nerdy accounting t-shirts. If there's ever a conference where that is the theme, y'all, I am all in. So I'm probably going to make a nerdy t-shirt that says some kind of accounting saying on the front, and we'll have a little QR code on our backs. So as we're walking around, people scan the QR code and end up on our landing page. We'll probably create a landing page that targets that industry. And that's a pretty broad industry, right? Home builders, home services, that encompasses electricians, plumbers, HVAC, roofing, landscaping, right? That's huge. So we may narrow that down even more, and we'll build out a landing page so we can have a QR code on the back of our t-shirts while we walk around that conference. Those are the kinds of things that I'm working on now. You know, back in the day, I say back in the day, picture it, Sicily 1922. You used to be able to just join, not just, but you could join Facebook groups that were industry specific. You can still do that, although some of the groups are getting better at filtering you out if you're not a professional in that industry. When I do that, I go in with just the intention to answer questions and share information. I'm not soliciting my services. I'm taking tax questions that I commonly hear from people in that industry, or bookkeeping problems that are common for people in that industry, and I'm just going in with some proactive information and advice. If I see questions around tax or bookkeeping, I'll jump in and give answers. At no point am I soliciting myself. Over time, people start to see you commenting, and you'll start getting messages directly from people asking to meet with you. That is not a fast buildup. At least it wasn't for me, but worth it for me. Yeah, let me come back to the chat. So that's a great question. I'm curious, for those of you who have niched down, I'm looking for, local home builder shows, local chambers of commerce, a lot of the same activities. Let's see, bad clients, fire them, raise their prices. Yeah, so back to how to get rid of the clients that are the F and D clients. You don't even, if you don't like confrontation, right? If the thought of sending that message that says, hey, we're no longer a good fit for you, gives you too much anxiety, double their fees or triple their fees, whatever. Increase their fees. Send them a message saying, we've made some changes. Your new fee for 2025 is going to be $27.50, whatever. I don't know, whatever, 3 times whatever they were paying before. A lot of the time when you do that, they'll fire themselves. Sometimes they'll stay, but then at least you're getting 3x what you were getting to continue to deal with them. And then you can do it again next year and they'll probably leave. So Nancy said when she leaves here, she's going to review her client list and ask her bookkeepers. I love that. Travis has a general idea of who his ideal client is, but he needs to get specific and build a complete profile. I really do encourage you to take the time. Like, for me, it started out with just thinking about my one favoritist client. I'm sure we all have one of those, the one who's been with you forever, or the one who is super responsive, whatever it is that makes you just absolutely love them. Think about just that one person, because sometimes the idea of tackling your whole entire client list can feel a little bit overwhelming. So start with the one client you really truly enjoy, and hopefully you have at least one. I'm gonna pray for all of you that you have at least one. So you have at least one, and think about all the things that you like about them and use that as your foundation for ranking other clients. Marina, I tripled the fees once and they accepted. Yeah, so that's the risk, right? If you have an F client, I'm going to challenge you to think of those F clients as absolutely have to go under every circumstance, because not all dollars are good dollars. For those people, I don't recommend the fee increase process, because they might accept the increased fee and then stay. So for your Fs, they get the message that says, I'm so sorry, we are just not a good fit for you anymore. We're happy to give you some referrals if you want them. We wish you all the best. For your D clients, then you can decide, do they get the email that says, we're so sorry? Or do they get the email that says, yeah, we took a look and I'm sorry, we're going to have to increase your fee to X. If you have too many clients like we did, where we could stand to get rid of the F and the Ds, then you can look at your C's as do they get the you're fired, or do they get the fee increase? So it really depends on your firm and how you're structured. At the same time we were going through this, we were raising our prices across the board anyway. So we had the ability to release more clients than we probably would have, because the number of clients who stayed at the higher fees were sufficient. Before we went through this ideal client process, the very first thing that I did was I fixed my low pricing. And I'm going to be super transparent with you guys here. And if I don't see some heck no's in the comments, I'm going to call some people out. Back when I was at my breaking point, guess what our minimum fee was for a 1040? I looking back now, I can't even like, I'm almost embarrassed to say it out loud. Our minimum fee for a 1040 was $250. That got you a federal return, one state, and a Schedule A. $250. Like, no wonder I was broke and no wonder we had so many clients. People will eat that up all day long. Ma'am, yes, thank you, Shalencia. You did it. You called me right on out. Embarrassing. So I literally overnight increased our minimum fee to 500, and we went from getting paid after the return was done, but before we transmitted, to getting paid up front. When they got the engagement letter, they paid at the same time. Your engagement letter said your tax prep fee for this year is going to be $500. Click here to pay and sign. So double the minimum fee and required payment up front. Then the next year we increased our minimum fee to $750 and paid up front. Between those 2 years, a bunch of clients, not as many as I would have thought, but clients left. So the year we went from 250 to 500, we lost about 44% of our clients. We had way too many anyway, so don't like clutch your pearls yet. We lost 44% of our clients, but guess what happened to my revenue? My revenue went up 22% from the year before. So we had 44% fewer clients, 22% more revenue. That's the math. That's the magic. So fixing pricing was step one, right? Fixing pricing got rid of the lowest hanging fruit, the people who were super, super, super price sensitive, so that I didn't have to make price one of my ranking metrics. Yeah, that was probably one of the most impactful changes that we made. But once we got the client list whittled down a little bit, then we could start applying the metrics that we chose. And of course, increasing the fees again, a couple more left. And then the year after we increased to 750, we switched to monthly package pricing for tax. So now we're pretty well honed in. And the result is a firm that is smooth and consistent all year. Even though we took 3 firms and smushed them together, we're now about 2 years past that, and we're all rowing in the same direction. 8 out of the 9 of us were together for 3 days last week in Orlando, just having the opportunity to make sure our visions and our missions align, that we are all still on board with our chosen core values. And then we can go back into the exercise of ranking our clients to make sure that the clients we have align with our core values, and go through another process where we release the ones that do not. I think we have just about 2 minutes left. I hope I got to everybody's questions. I tried to keep my eye on the chat as we went. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, I think my email address, I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but I'm going to pop it in the chat. If you want to meet up offline and chat about your firm, helping hone in on who your ideal client is, how can you change things to make your firm a more fun and joyful place to work? I love talking about this stuff. I can't tell you, there aren't words that to properly define how much better my life is today than it was 3 or 4 years ago. These things really matter, and my staff too. So if you're struggling, I would love to connect. You can, Kyle shared my LinkedIn. I would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a DM. We can find time to chat. I'd love to talk with you and try to help you achieve the joy and align your client list for growth in a joyful and non-stressful way. I'm so happy you guys all came. I hope you walk away with like at least one actionable item. So that's my challenge to you. Go back and do one thing to try to pare down your client list a little bit, to focus on the people who actually make you happy to work with. All right, y'all. This was a real pleasure. Thank you for participating so much in the chat too. Super helpful. Bye, everyone.